Hey folks, I'm just leaving CrossFit. We're going to ExperiencedDevs subreddit for a topic. And this one is about side projects, job applications, this kind of stuff. And I've talked about this many times before. I have a whole YouTube channel for resume reviews. And this is just like my personal opinion on this stuff. I don't have like statistical data from industry to like back up what I'm saying, to be like, you know, literally it's a fact that, you know, X% improvement, blah, blah, blah. But this person on Reddit wrote that, you know, they got like 12 years of experience, so they've been a developer for a while. And they have a personal project. I don't even know what it is. I don't know if they mentioned it. They probably did, but it's on GitHub. It's pretty popular, apparently. Apparently it has like over 6,000 stars. So like great work, you know. And they're asking like, should I include this? And they said that they've seen people saying that personal projects don't matter on resumes. And I think there is like when we make statements like this, and I'm probably guilty of it too, so I'm trying to be like transparent, but like when we make generalized statements like this, they can be quite misleading. So just as an example, right, we make this statement: personal projects don't matter on resumes, don't influence anything. So if you were I'm just making up examples to exaggerate here, but if you were a developer with 30 years of experience and 30 years of like professional working experience, and you had side projects, will those side projects make a difference in your hiring? I would say, you know, probably not, unless you have some side projects that are truly things where you're like, compared to my professional work experience, these things stand out, right? It's not that they have no value, but I would probably assume that your 30 years of work experience probably have more, I don't know, like material that's resume worthy to stand out for the jobs you're applying to. And perhaps not, but I would wager that that is the case. Okay, now if you go to the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you are a new grad, or you're an aspiring developer trying to get your first dev job. You have 0 years of professional developer experience because you've literally never worked as a developer before, which is totally fine, right? We all have to start. So if we take this same blanket statement, say side projects do not matter for resumes, well, okay, so what do you put on your resume then? Right? I think it's a little bit dangerous to not qualify things. I realize this post was made on ExperiencedDevs subreddit. Maybe that automatically and this person is a senior developer, maybe that automatically qualifies the context of this post. But again, I just want to make this statement that I think that when we are communicating these things, it's important for us to try and explicitly qualify them as much as possible. And if you're someone watching this video and, you know, you're thinking about when maybe you are someone who is more junior and you like to read ExperiencedDevs so you can learn, or you do like reading and watching things online so you can, you know, learn about how parts of the industry work. Try to, if you're hearing blanket statements, like challenge yourself to be like, how is this qualified? It's not that automatically it's right or automatically wrong, and you must write off everything or believe everything you hear. But it's like, how do we qualify these things? This is like, I think like a quality that's probably good as a software engineer is like, you know, being curious to understand, like, what does this actually mean? Something in my mouth. Ugh. What are you? So, you know, this person saying the statement like, hey, I've heard that projects don't matter for resumes. Like, I don't know, like as a general rule, I wouldn't make that statement. I would say the opposite as a general guideline is that personal projects can absolutely help on a resume. But like, how do we qualify this, right? That's why I tried to give you an example where two complete opposite ends of a spectrum for experience levels. But perhaps, like, for this person, like, I think this is where we need to kind of get into some of the details of it. I don't know this person's work experience. I don't know what their many-starred GitHub project is. I don't know what job they're applying for. Someone's got to move over here, though. The answer is me. I have to move over here. God. Okay. I had a truck in front of me, and I had a pickup that was deciding it wasn't worth letting me merge onto the highway. So lane ends. I don't have much of a choice. Okay, so I don't have the details for this person, right? Like, so this is how I would kind of investigate whether or not it's worth including something like a side project. Is like, number one, if you're just trying to, and maybe depending on your experience level and stuff, maybe you have a very generic version of your resume, and then you have alternate versions that are more tailored for specific types of roles and stuff, right? Is that more work? Yeah, 100%, it's more work. But there might be different things that you're interested in. I'm just going to make this up as an example. Maybe you have over a decade of experience and you're like, cool, I might be interested in some mobile development roles. I might be interested in some web development roles. And you have flavors of your resume that call out different things. Right? So when you're like, I'm applying to a mobile developer role, like you have it a little bit more tailored to like highlight some of that. You could do that, right? And I think most people just have a generic version of their resume. I say generic as in like, you're just calling out across the spectrum of things that you have experience in, you know, your most impactful work across your career. That's the more, you know, common thing. So I think if you're trying to draw attention to your best experiences, your most impactful work, if you're looking at your work experience relative to what you're trying to apply to, and then you're going, I have, you know, side project A, B, and C, they're not professional working experience, but if you're looking at those being like, they're so much more relevant or so much more impactful in this space that I'm trying to apply to, then I would absolutely find a way to include them with some real estate on your resume. Right? And just totally making this up as an example, just to kind of like exaggerate the point, but like, let's say, I'm going to go back to this example of like mobile versus web development, okay? Let's pretend that this person has this 6,000 star repo that's like a web dev framework or package that they use for web development, and their professional work experience is like 80% mobile development, right? If they're trying to stand out in a web developer role, they might be like, okay, I got all this professional experience where I can demonstrate, you know, as a more senior developer, I've had this kind of impact, but they might be looking at sort of the technical call-outs being like, doesn't really speak to like my capabilities as a web developer. So they might, in that case, try to truncate a little bit of their professional work experience as a mobile developer, and then bring in some side project stuff from that repo that has a ton of attention, that's clearly like and you know, is it a rule that just because it has a lot of stars it's good? Like, not necessarily, but I think it's probably a pretty good indicator that they've delivered something high value, right? And I think they were calling out like they've had like 50 contributors. Like that's great. They've been able to get a community to kind of rally behind and see value and make contributions. So this might just be a great opportunity to highlight something like that. So I don't like the idea of saying like side projects don't matter. I just think that that's a misleading statement. I think that side projects can absolutely be a way to highlight areas that you have some experience in, or that you're showing initiative learning things to round out the areas of your resume that you otherwise feel are lacking. The other thing too, just to kind of call it out, because as I've been talking about this, I was saying like, oh, like trim out some stuff from your resume, but like, I don't know, some people have the opinion, they're like, I don't give a shit how long my resume is. I got, 15 years of experience. I'm writing a 3 to 4 page resume. You deal with it. And like, I don't think that that's the best way to do it personally, but I don't make the rules. I've seen people posting online about stuff like this where they're like, my resume is 3 or 4 pages, and like I get interviews all the time. So like, there's no like there's no rule carved in stone that says it must be. No, there's general guidelines. Like some people will even say a single page, and I'm like, I've always heard like 1 to 2 pages is a great spot. Beyond that, there starts to be like diminishing returns where people might not even like read through. But I don't have, this is why I said I don't have stats on this. This is my lived experience from doing, engineering management for 13 years and being a hiring manager like the entire time. So I'm just sharing with you when I read through resumes, like how I kind of navigate that. But certainly, I wouldn't write off side projects. They touch on different things compared to work experience, right? I think when we're thinking about what do we want to showcase as developers, like the reason that professional experience is really good to, if you have professional experience that covers these different pillars, the reason that's really helpful is because you're highlighting to a reader of your resume, literally in a professional environment, which is where I would be working if I worked for you, I have been able to demonstrate this type of thing, right? It conveys to, in my opinion, it conveys to the reader, this is the closest resemblance of what you would be getting, right? When it's a side project, it's not, that doesn't automatically disqualify it, but it's like, well, was that done in a team? Because we build software in teams. Like, there are differences, in terms of deadlines and stuff. Okay, you have this side project, but you've been building it for 10 years. Like, okay, like that kind of changes some of the constraints and the dimensions that we're playing with when we're trying to think about someone's experience and impact. Does it make it wrong? Like, no. It's just that when we can talk about it from professional experience, it is the most relatable. Right? That's how I would frame that, is it's the most relatable as someone who's trying to interpret it. So I just think that if you're the kind of person who has stuff going on outside of work because you do like to build things, like that's great. Does it automatically qualify that kind of stuff to go onto a resume? No. Like, I'll give you an example. If I have my own resume right now, okay, if I apply for an engineering manager role, primarily I have a lot of experience as an engineering manager to put down on a resume. Right? I can talk about, different team compositions, things that I've been responsible for leading, but a lot of what I would call out on a resume, especially in more recent times, has nothing to do with things that I've coded. Okay, so the way that I would define my experience on a resume would start to have diminishing coverage, I guess is how I would call it, on like Nick has coded things. Now, for some places, they look at it like a big component still. Like, is that actually what's happening in reality? Like, I think the answer is no. But even from interviews I've been in, where like even just to give you an example, like my Microsoft interview 5 years ago had like leet code style questions. I've not coded like features in my engineering manager role at Microsoft in 5 years. At all. Like it is, whatever I was being tested on in that interview is, in my opinion, the absolute least representative part of my role that possibly could have been tested. It is insane. But clearly, to go through the process, like I said, I don't make the rules. To go through the process, someone in the interview was like, well, we need to test for this. And then I would make the assumption that probably someone scanning resumes and how that's fed through was like, well, we want to see some, like we expect our managers to be technical. Where is the evidence that this person's technical, right? If I had only written like led teams did this stuff, they might go, well, we don't have any confidence from reading this that this person actually codes or can code or can read code. Ironically, like, does that matter if I've been able to demonstrate success across like what managers are responsible for? I don't know. Seems like there's a bit of a, I don't know, like dichotomy there, but point is that like on a resume, I would still want to make sure that I can call out technical contributions. Now, fortunately, in my first engineering manager role, it was like what we called a technical manager at that company. So my time, like I was, for the 8 years I was there, I was coding, almost every single day up until probably towards the last year. There was just like kind of like too much to jump between where I wasn't coding as much. Still coding, just not as much. And that means I have like roughly 8 years of experience at that company where I can say, worked on this, like I literally built this thing or worked in teams, like led the teams and coded in the teams. But if I didn't have that, right, and my most recent experience at Microsoft, that's why I'm saying the recency bias here is like that part is tapering off. I'm not highlighting that because I haven't been doing that at work. But I code literally every single day outside of work. I love building software. So I would want to find ways where I can show, how do I make sure that I can call out some of the technical pieces at Microsoft where it might not be, oh, I coded this, but, one example is like on architecture, like I designed a system on my previous team to do attribution for workflows across partner teams, right? So like I came up with the basis for that design. That is something that like, from like an architectural perspective, I can claim responsibility for that, right? But how do I find other technical things? And I might get to the point where I'm kind of going through this experience on my resume going, I don't think it's telling a good enough story in recent times that would convince an employer that I can code, right? So like, what other things do I have outside of Microsoft experience over the past 5 years that I could call out? And like, I have a bunch of things. So like I write a technical, I haven't in the last year and a half to 2 years, I have a technical blog, right? I have a bunch of technical articles that I've written, for programming. I literally have programming courses on one of the largest like C# platforms for teaching people. And I have a course where I've taught thousands and thousands of students how to program in C#. So like, I didn't just get lucky and make a video and pretended I could code. Like it's 11 hours between two courses of me teaching basics of C#. Now, is that really that valuable? I don't know. Like that might be a a brief note to call out on my resume to at least tell, like, I understand technical pieces, like I can read and write code, I can mentor people because that's all about like teaching, so I can convey ideas. Like, I think that's an important part. Is that really touching on the technical part? Like, a little bit, but you know, sort of at my level, like at a principal level, engineering manager, is that enough? Like, I don't really think so. Okay, so what else have I done? Well, I build brand ghost outside of work. Like, well, what is that? Like, what I don't want to do on a resume is try to write it as a pitch, because I'm not trying to sell brand ghost to the resume readers. But what I do want to sell on the resume is like, I built this system. It scales this way. It uses these technologies. This is something I have built. I architected this. I designed this. I can call out that it was done in a team. Like, I had to interface with these other sort of stakeholders. It's a live service. It has to be supported. Like, there are things that I can call out for that as a side project that's like, look, this is literally a live running service that I support. And I am the one responsible for building and architecting these things. So now I can select from that as a side project, what things do I want to highlight to be like, this is technical experience I have. So I, like, on a resume at this point, would I add brand ghost? Probably, because I think that calls out technical experience. So I'm just about to pull in at home here, but I, just wanted to round all this out by saying, don't write off side projects regardless of your level. Look at the experience that you're highlighting from your professional career compared to like where you're trying to go. And if you feel like there's a gap that your side projects fill, whether that's like, just to give you an example, most of the time I feel like it's like technical skills, like different tech stacks and things like that. You might have a side project where you're like, look, like I actually led a group of people building this thing, and I took a different kind of role, and you're highlighting, it's not even a technical thing. It's like, this is something else on top of that, and you're highlighting that experience. Like, that might be great to call out, right? I collaborated with people across like 5 different countries in different time zones, and we built whatever, and I was the one who brought people together, coordinated this stuff. Like, maybe that's a thing you want to highlight. So I think there's many different angles that you could take with side projects. I wouldn't write them off, but also like, just think about what's on your resume and how you're rounding out your expertise. That's how I would frame that. So thanks for watching. If you got questions, leave them below in the comments. Happy to try and answer. And of course, if you want to be kept anonymous, go to codecommute.com. You can submit questions anonymously there. And like I mentioned, I do have other YouTube channels. DevLeader Path to Tech is where I do resume reviews. DevLeader Podcast is where I interview software engineers and do a live stream every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific. And then DevLeader is my main YouTube channel. I have C# tutorials and programming with AI. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Take care.